So imagine you are standing in a crowded airport bookstore, or maybe you're just endlessly scrolling through a digital storefront on your phone.
Right, which we all do constantly.
Exactly. And it's after a completely exhausting, noisy day. You are utterly fatigued by just the sheer volume of information that is screaming for your attention.
Your brain is basically at maximum cognitive load at that point.
Yeah, totally. And then amidst all those really loud, aggressive book covers, the ones with the bold neon lettering promising to, like, 10x your productivity or hack your entire life, your eyes land on one specific image.
And something shifts.
Yes. Almost involuntarily, you take a deep breath. Your shoulders drop like a fraction of an inch. Welcome to today's deep dive, where we are going to look at exactly why that happens.
It really is a masterclass in visual psychology.
It is. So we have a unique mission for you today. Instead of our usual towering stack of articles or, dense nonfiction manuscripts, we are doing a profound, slow-burn deconstruction of a single, highly evocative piece of source material.
Which is pretty exciting.
I think so, too. We are analyzing a book cover.
Because, honestly, that fraction of a second in the bookstore is really all it takes for persuasive architecture to do its job.
Right.
A book cover is fundamentally a psychological tool. I mean, it is engineered to interrupt your day, identify a latent problem you're experiencing, and then offer you a tangible solution.
And it does all of that before you even consciously read the title.
Exactly. We are bombarded with, thousands of visual cues a day. So analyzing how one specific image manages to bypass our defense mechanisms and speak directly to our nervous system it reveals an enormous amount about how we process trust, desire, and authority.
So let's get into it. The piece of persuasive architecture we are looking at today is the cover for a book titled Mind Like Water, Keeping Your Balance in a Chaotic World by Jim Ballard.
And it features a foreword by Ken Blanchard, Ph.D.
Right, which is super important, and we'll get to that. But if you haven't seen this cover, picture this. The top half is submerged in this incredibly calming, deeply saturated, almost ethereal blue, watery background.
It's not a crashing ocean wave either.
No, not at all. It's a perfectly still, glowing pond. And floating in this deep blue are several really soft, translucent lily pads. They're just sort of drifting diagonally across the space.
Yeah, it draws you right in.
And right in the upper left quadrant, drawing your eye immediately, is a singular, softly glowing, pinkish-white lotus or water lily.
It's just sitting there on the water.
Yeah. And then below that whole aquatic scene, the title, Mind Like Water, sits above this very clean, cream-colored background. And then the subtitle and the author credentials are anchored solidly at the bottom.
That visual division is just crucial.
Oh, totally.
It's a really deliberate splitting of the world into two distinct realms. You have the aspirational, internal state above, and then the grounded, practical reality below. Every single element, from the specific wavelength of the color blue to the semiotic weight of the typography, is working in tandem. It's sending a highly targeted message to a reader who is, probably feeling pretty overwhelmed.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to start with the very first conceptual hook the viewer absorbs, which is that arresting title paired with the serene background.
Mind like water.
Right, Mind Like Water. It is a famous philosophical concept heavily associated with Zen Buddhism and martial arts. But I actually want to push back on a common misconception here.
Oh, go for it.
So when we hear the word water, especially in the context of relaxation, meditation, or self-help, our default is to imagine something totally passive.
Sure. Yeah.
We think of a puddle just sitting there on the pavement, completely inert, doing absolutely nothing.
We conflate tranquility with inactivity.
Exactly.
We just assume that to be calm means to be motionless or disconnected from the forces around us.
But doesn't Mind Like Water actually imply a state that is highly active, resilient, and almost aggressively adaptable?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about a river. A river isn't passive. It possesses the kinetic energy to literally carve through solid granite over time, simply through persistence.
The Grand Canyon wasn't carved by passive water.
Right. Or think about the physical properties of fluid dynamics. If you pour water into a teacup, it instantly becomes the teacup. If you pour it into a jagged, uneven ravine, it perfectly fills the ravine.
It instantly adjusts its entire structure.
Yes, to whatever container it is poured into. And it does this without ever experiencing trauma and without ever losing its fundamental nature. It is the ultimate expression of resilience.
What's fascinating here is how the visual designer chose to represent that exact psychological concept.
Yeah, how they bypass the aggressive imagery.
Exactly. They didn't show the river carving the canyon or some massive crashing wave. They showed lily pads and a single glowing lotus flower resting on a deep, still pond.
Which feels so much more inviting.
It is, and the biology of those specific plants is incredibly instructive for this metaphor. Lily pads do not fight the body of water they live in.
Right, they just sort of exist with it.
They are rooted down in the muck at the very bottom of the pond, but their leaves rest lightly on the surface. So when a ripple comes along, or a drop of rain hits the pond, the lily pad doesn't try to resist the kinetic energy.
It doesn't brace for impact.
No, not at all. It simply rises and falls with the ripple.
It possesses total buoyancy. It's absorbing the energy rather than fighting it.
Precisely. The visual metaphor reinforces the psychological principle that cultivating a mind like water isn't about resisting the current of your life.
Or fighting the inevitable stressful elements of your day.
Right. It is about finding that buoyancy. It is about resting on the surface of your circumstances, moving fluidly with them rather than sinking beneath them.
That makes so much sense.
And furthermore, we really have to look at the cognitive science of the color palette itself here.
Oh, the blue.
Yes. The top half of this cover is bathed in a highly saturated deep blue. Short wavelength light, like the specific blue, physically affects the autonomic nervous system.
Wait, literally.
Literally. Studies in environmental psychology show that exposure to this specific shade of blue actually lowers the heart rate.
Wow.
Yeah, it reduces sympathetic nervous system activity. That's your fight or flight response. So the design isn't just suggesting calmness metaphorically, it is attempting to induce it physiologically.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And sitting right in the middle of that physiological calm is the glowing flower.
The lotus.
Right, and it's the only warm color on the entire top half of the cover.
Yeah.
Everything else is this cool, infinite blue, and then you have this soft, radiant, pinkish-white light just emanating from the lotus.
That flower acts as the promise of clarity.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, in many Eastern traditions, the lotus is the ultimate symbol of mental purity and enlightenment, specifically because of its growth cycle.
Oh, because it grows in the mud.
Exactly. It originates in the dark, muddy, anoxic depths of the water. Then it pushes its way up through all that darkness and blossoms immaculately clean right on the surface.
Ah, I love that imagery.
So by placing that single glowing flower as the focal point, the design is making a profound promise to you. It's saying clarity and focus are entirely possible for you, even if the depths of your current situation are dark, murky, and unfathomable.
It directs the eye and says, this is the precise state of mind you can achieve.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because if the cover was only that top half, just the physiologically calming blue water, the glowing lotus, and the poetic phrase, mind like water, it would probably belong in the poetry section.
Or maybe a purely aesthetic art book, sure.
Right. It would be lovely, but ultimately kind of passive visual experience. But the design introduces this deliberate, almost jarring friction.
The subtitle.
Yes, the subtitle. It reads, Keeping Your Balance in a Chaotic World.
It's quite a pivot.
It is. We have just been bathed in this incredibly serene, tranquil visual, and suddenly the text drops the word chaotic right into our laps. It is such a harsh, jagged word.
It brings up associations of noise, unpredictability, stress.
Disorder, yeah. Like, when I see chaotic world, my first instinct is to assume the book is selling a system to organize my external life.
Like an inbox zero method.
Exactly. Or some time management hack to fix my environment.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how persuasion works, we have to look at the psychological mechanism of validation occurring right there in that subtitle.
Validation of the chaos.
Yes. Acknowledging the chaos is a highly effective communication strategy known as two-sided messaging.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, if a book cover simply promised how to end the chaos in your life, the modern reader's cognitive defense mechanisms would immediately deploy.
Your internal lie detector goes off.
Precisely. You know inherently that a book cannot stop traffic. It cannot fix a volatile economy.
And it certainly cannot manage your difficult coworkers.
No, it can't.
It creates instant cognitive dissonance. If the promise feels too grand, the brain just rejects the entire premise as marketing snake oil.
Exactly. By using the phrase "in a chaotic world," the cover makes a massive concession. It validates your lived experience.
It says, we agree with you.
It says, we agree. The external world is noisy, stressful, and largely out of your control. And by acknowledging a negative truth, The cover lowers the reader's affective filter.
It builds immediate trust.
It does. Because it admits that the world is chaotic, you are now much more receptive to its actual promise, which is found in those preceding words, keeping your balance.
So the goal pivots inward.
Yes. It is promising internal regulation, maintaining your own center of gravity regardless of the external environment.
That distinction between fixing the world and fixing your posture within it is just brilliant.
It really is.
And think about the physical act of balance itself. Going back to the martial arts roots of the title, keeping your balance isn't a static achievement.
No, it's not.
You don't just find your balance once at 8 a.m. and then you're done for the rest of the day. Balance is dynamic.
It requires continuous active proprioception. It is a state of constant micro-adjustment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you are standing on one leg, you might look perfectly still to an observer.
Yeah.
But internally, your ankle's constantly twitching, your core muscles are firing.
Your arms are making microscopic sways to counter the pull of gravity.
Yes. Balance is this ongoing process of correcting yourself against external forces. So by using the phrase keeping your balance, the cover suggests that the book contains practical, actionable methodologies.
It is not going to tell you to abandon your life and go sit silently under a tree.
Right. It is going to teach you the psychological micro-adjustments you need to navigate a messy, unpredictable Tuesday without falling over.
Which is what people actually want.
Totally. Look at your own smartphone screen right now, or think about your daily digital habits. How many apps use soothing, minimalist interfaces to mask an underlying architecture of absolute chaos and constant interruption?
Oh, almost all of them.
Right. This cover is operating on that exact same battleground of attention, but it's being honest about the friction.
It creates a perfectly constructed psychological funnel.
A funnel? How so?
Well, you are living in the bottom text, the chaotic world. The book is offering to transport your internal state to the top image, the tranquil blue water.
Oh, wow. Yes.
It meets you where you are, validates your exhaustion, and then points toward the surface. Which leads us to the final and arguably most complex layer of this cover's persuasive architecture.
The mechanism of authority.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean when we look at the very bottom of the cover? Below all the beautiful imagery and the validating subtitle, we get to the authorship.
Right, the credentials.
In a very clean, classic serif font, we see the author's name, Jim Ballard.
Wow.
And right beneath it, carrying a tremendous amount of visual weight, it proudly declares, "Forward by Ken Blanchard, Ph.D."
It really stands out.
It does. I look at this and see a collision of two entirely different worlds. I mean, we have this highly spiritual Eastern philosophical concept of the water lily and the Zen mind.
It feels ethereal and poetic.
So why suddenly is it so crucial to loudly broadcast a Western academic PhD credential on the cover?
This raises an important question about how modern consumers, particularly in Western markets, assign trust.
Like how we give ourselves permission to consume certain types of information.
Exactly. We are deeply drawn to the aesthetic of peace. We desperately want the psychological relief promised by Eastern philosophies.
Of course we do. We're exhausted.
But we are simultaneously conditioned to be deeply suspicious of anything that scans as unscientific, woo-woo, or unsupported by empirical data.
I see.
So the inclusion of the PhD functions as an intellectual alibi.
An intellectual alibi. Wow. That is a fantastic way to put it.
It's very common in marketing.
It reminds me of someone buying a ridiculously expensive, incredibly fast sports car. But when their friends ask about it, they spend 20 minutes talking about the engineering of the fuel injection system.
Or the resale value.
Yes, the resale value.
Yeah.
They need a rational cover story to justify a purchase that was entirely driven by emotional desire.
That is the exact psychological mechanism at play here. The semiotic weight of a serif font, which visually connects to the history of academia, broadsheet journalism, and institutional authority,
Right.
paired with the letters PhD, bypasses the brain's skepticism. And by the way, Ken Blanchard is actually a massively influential management and leadership expert. He co-authored The 1 Minute Manager.
Oh, wow. So he's huge in the business world.
Huge. He represents the ultimate corporate, results-driven authority. So by anchoring this ethereal water lily concept with a corporate PhD, the cover is assuring the skeptical reader.
Telling them that the methods inside are grounded.
Grounded, structured, and validated by serious psychological or behavioral study.
It bridges the gap between the right brain and the left brain perfectly.
It really does.
The right brain sees the deep blue water and the glowing lotus and says, I am exhausted. I want to feel that kind of peace.
But the left brain, the rational protector, throws up a wall.
Exactly. The left brain says, we don't have time for poetry or meditation retreats. We have spreadsheets to manage, a mortgage to pay, and real-world problems to solve.
We need actionable data.
Right. Then the left brain sees the word chaotic, feels validated, sees the PhD, and determines that the methodology is empirically verified. The left brain says, okay, this is scientifically sound. We are clear to proceed.
It gives the highly rational, perhaps stressed out professional the permission structure they need to buy a book about spiritual tranquility.
It's so clever.
It tells them that achieving a mind like water isn't some mystical daydream. It is a tangible, measurable psychological state that can be methodically achieved through evidence-based practice.
So that tension between the mystical image and the academic credential isn't an accident at all.
Not even a little bit. It is a highly calibrated synthesis designed to appeal to a very specific demographic of overwhelmed high achievers.
It fundamentally changes how you think about walking through a bookstore or just browsing online.
You never look at it the same way.
No, you really don't. We assume we are just glancing at nice pictures and catchy titles, but we are actually participating in a highly sophisticated, high-speed psychological dialogue.
In the span of maybe 2 seconds.
2 seconds. This cover speaks to our physiological stress through color theory, validates our daily struggles through targeted vocabulary, offers a dynamic solution, and provides the empirical safety net required to make a commitment.
And crucially, it achieves all of this heavy psychological lifting without ever feeling cluttered or desperate.
That's a great point. It feels very clean.
The design utilizes a massive amount of negative space. The cream background on the bottom half is almost completely empty except for the text.
Right.
It isn't shouting at you to buy it. It is simply presenting a quiet surface for you to interact with, which perfectly mirrors the central metaphor of the water itself.
So if we pull all the way back and look at the complete architecture we've deconstructed today in this deep dive, it is remarkable how elegantly these complex ideas are layered.
It's a masterclass.
We start with the cultivation of desire, the active, buoyant, resilient state of the mind, like water, visually reinforced by calming short wavelengths blues and the focal clarity of the lotus.
Then we move to the validation of reality.
The chaotic world. It doesn't sugarcoat your environment. It agrees with you that things are tough out there.
Next, we establish the actionable goal.
Right, keeping your dynamic balance through constant micro-adjustments, not by fixing the external world, but by regulating your internal state.
And finally, it seals the deal with the architecture of authority,
Providing an intellectual alibi and a permission structure through academic and corporate credentials.
It successfully takes the ethereal and makes it empirical. It is a powerful reminder that sometimes profoundly complex communication doesn't require a 1,000-page textbook or a dense manuscript.
Definitely not.
Sometimes true profundity is found in the perfect synthesis of the right visual metaphor, the honest acknowledgement of human struggle, and the precise amount of structural authority needed to let the skeptical mind finally rest.
It definitely makes me want to examine the visual noise I let into my own life. Or, at least go find a very quiet body of water to stare at for a few hours.
I think we could all use that.
For sure. It's an incredible lesson in how much depth can be contained in a single image.
Building on that thought, if we return to that central metaphor of water one last time.
Yeah, let's do it.
We explored how water naturally, instantly, and without trauma takes the exact shape of whatever container it is poured into. It is the ultimate adapter.
Right.
It doesn't fight the shape of the cup or the ravine. It simply fills the space it is given. If the ultimate goal presented by this deep dive is to cultivate a mind like water, a mind that is that fluid, that adaptable, and that responsive, it forces us to ask a rather challenging question about our own daily routines.
That's it.
If your mind is biologically and psychologically wired to take the shape of its container, what kind of container? What specific digital environments, what daily inputs, what echo chambers, and what visual architectures are you currently pouring your mind into?